Nestled about 25 miles north of New York City, White Plains is a multifaceted center for shopping, education, health, business, legal affairs, and more. It boasts a daytime population at about 250,000, but its official U.S. resident count is around 56,000. It has an interesting story, and in some ways, it mirrors the broader trajectory of America's urban evolution. From its humble beginnings as a meeting ground between Puritan settlers and Native American sachems, to its status as a bustling city at the forefront of modern commerce, White Plains has left an indelible mark on American history. It's been around for centuries with a long history, but in this presentation, we're going to focus on the city during the particularly transformative period of the 20th century. But first, let's do a quick recap. We'll go back to the 17th and 18th centuries, when the continent was undergoing significant colonization and settlement by European powers. In the early days, White Plains was known as Quoropas to the indigenous Wecquaesgeek tribe, a name that has been translated to White Marshes, and of course this would eventually become White Plains. In 1683, a group of Puritans from Connecticut purchased over 4,000 acres from the natives, and this marked the beginning of European settlement in the area. Over time, the area would grow, attracting more settlers seeking opportunity and a fresh start. By 1758, the local colonial government recognized the potential of White Plains and relocated its seat to the burgeoning village. During the American Revolution, amidst the British invasion of New York City, a pivotal moment occurred on July 9, 1776, when the New York Provincial Congress convened in White Plains Courthouse and received and ratified the Declaration of Independence, effectively birthing the state of New York. War itself would soon enter the small village of White Plains, culminating in an epic battle in October of 1776. In this Battle of White Plains, troops led by General George Washington faced off against British forces on Chatterton's Hill, now known as Battle Hill. In the aftermath of the war, White Plains experienced steady growth. And we're going to fast forward to the arrival of the New York Central Railroad in 1844, which really made things grow and transformed White Plains into a bustling urban center, ready for the upcoming century. At the dawn of the 20th century, the country was rapidly industrializing, transitioning from an agrarian society to an urbanized powerhouse. The landscape was shaped by the likes of Theodore Roosevelt's progressive reforms and the burgeoning labor movement's fight for better conditions. In White Plains, amidst this whirlwind of transformation, the seeds of modern suburban life were taking root. With its proximity to New York City and expansive transportation infrastructure, White Plains became a hub of economic activity and residential development, embodying the evolving American dream of prosperity and opportunity. In the early 1900s, White Plains was on the verge of transitioning from a humble town to a bustling city. This transformative era, characterized by a doubling of the population, was fueled by a wave of European immigrants, particularly Italians seeking opportunities in construction and labor. The city would become a nexus along stagecoach routes linking the Big Apple with upstate New York and Connecticut. As the cityscape expanded, so did its infrastructure and social services, with notable establishments like the Eastern State Journal and Daily Argus shaping local media, and also the YMCA providing crucial community support. The brand new White Plains Public Library was housed in a small frame building adjacent to the old Court Street School. Staff consisted of one librarian, Director Clara Hopper. During this time, residential development surged, with neighborhoods like Battle Hill Park emerging, facilitated by advancements like the electrification of the Harlem Railroad. Historical landmarks, such as the Jacob Purdy House, added depth to the city's heritage. Despite challenges, including socioeconomic disparities and living conditions, White Plains brimmed with potential, ready to embrace further growth in the unfolding 20th century. The 1910s marked a pivotal era in American history, characterized by dynamic social, political, and economic shifts. The decade saw significant events such as World War I, the women's suffrage movement, and the rise of labor unions. It was a time when the nation experienced rapid industrialization alongside deepening social inequalities. And against this backdrop, White Plains mirrored the larger societal transformations of the era and underwent a transition as it shed its former small-town identity and embraced its newfound status as an official city. In this decade, the library was now situated in a stylish new red brick Georgian building on the corner of Quiropas and Grand Streets. It was constructed with a donation from library enthusiast Andrew Carnegie. A big year was 1912, when the New York, Westchester, and Boston Railroad opened up new avenues for suburban living, particularly for those commuting to larger East Coast cities. The outbreak of World War I galvanized the community, with initiatives like the Red Cross mobilizing support for the war effort through successful fundraising campaigns. Meanwhile, landmarks like the White Plains Armory and monuments erected by the Daughters of the American Revolution served as tangible reminders of the city's heritage. Significant developments in healthcare mirrored the city's overall progress. Technological advancements, such as the conversion of ambulances from horse-drawn to automobiles and the increasing popularity of electric streetcars, reflected White Plains' modernization efforts. By the end of the decade, White Plains had solidified its position as a bustling urban center, poised for further growth and prosperity in the years to come. The 1920s in American history, often referred to as the Roaring Twenties, was a decade marked by significant cultural, social, and economic transformations. However, it was also a time of contrasts, as Prohibition fueled the growth of organized crime and speakeasies. The economy experienced a period of prosperity, yet this masked underlying inequalities, including widespread racial segregation and discrimination. In White Plains, amidst this era of change, the effects were felt in various ways. The city experienced a period of unprecedented growth, epitomized by its burgeoning population, flourishing businesses, and ambitious development projects. The completion of the Bronx River Parkway in 1925 revolutionized travel in the region, connecting White Plains to southern Westchester and New York City, and ultimately reshaping residential and commercial areas along its route. The library needed more space around this time, so it constructed new north and south wings, and also added much-needed stack space and a story room for children. The city during this time saw the rise of towering buildings along Main Street, which symbolized newfound prosperity. But the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties couldn't last forever. The exuberance and excesses of the era came crashing down with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, leaving millions of Americans in economic turmoil. During the 1930s, America faced the harsh realities of the Great Depression, which was marked by economic collapse and widespread unemployment. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. In White Plains, the effects of the Depression were keenly felt as residents grappled with job losses and economic instability. However, amidst the hardships, communities rallied together, finding resilience and hope in local initiatives and the promise of a brighter future. In fact, White Plains managed to weather the storm better than many other places in the country. At the library, Miss Hopper would retire after 40 years of service. And they had some hot new tech at the library. A telephone switchboard was installed, and the building would receive an average of 15 calls a day. During this time, architectural landmarks like the North Court Building and the County Office Building stood as symbols of progress, while events like the Grand Parade commemorating the city's history highlighted its resilience and significance on the national stage. White Plains' tree-lined streets, dotted with quaint shops and bustling markets, offered a glimpse into small-town Americana, while its proximity to urban centers provided residents with access to cultural amenities and opportunities for employment. With World War II looming on the horizon, the resilient spirit of the community prevailed, fostering a sense of unity and determination amidst uncertain times. The 1940s were marked by World War II and its aftermath. The home front buzzed with activity as factories churned out supplies for troops overseas, and rationing became a way of life for many Americans. In White Plains, like in many other parts of the country, the war effort brought a sense of unity and purpose among residents. The city mobilized its resources and population for the conflict, experiencing blackouts and air raid drills as routine safety measures. The attack on Pearl Harbor led to the detainment of residents of Japanese descent, and this highlighted internal tensions. And after victory in World War II, there was a surge in housing demand, leading to the construction of projects like Winbrook to accommodate returning veterans and displaced families. The post-war period also saw the arrival of larger stores like Macy's, reflecting a shift towards modernization. Amidst these developments, the establishment of the White Plains Parking Authority and implementation of curbside parking meters demonstrated the city's innovative approach to urban management. And boy, are they dedicated. The library during this time celebrated its 50th anniversary. And overall, the city brimmed with anticipation for the coming decade, poised for growth and innovation in its suburban landscape. Following World War II, the U.S. experienced an economic boom, leading to a rise in consumerism and the establishment of the middle class. This decade saw the emergence of iconic cultural phenomena such as rock and roll music, the Beat Generation literary movement, and the beginning of the civil rights movement. It was also a time of deep social divisions, with the Cold War looming large and fear of communism gripping the nation. In White Plains, like many other places, there was a baby boom as soldiers returned home and started families. City leaders pushed urban renewal initiatives, leveraging federal funds to address areas affected by underinvestment and poverty since the Great Depression. However, this era of economic prosperity was also marked with exacerbation of housing segregation, particularly in downtown areas, reflecting wider social tensions of the time. Despite these challenges, companies such as Nestle and PepsiCo relocated their headquarters to White Plains, capitalizing on its proximity to New York City while also enjoying lower operating costs. This highlights White Plains' growing importance as a corporate hub during this time. There were also other investments, like the construction of I-287, that further facilitated development and connectivity. Over at the library, the Friends were engaged in important services. This is also when the Westchester Library System was established. And overall, with a robust economy and diverse cultural scene, the city was ready for whatever was coming next. The 1960s in America was a decade of immense change, from the Civil Rights Movement to Vietnam War protests, from the counterculture revolution to the space race. The era also witnessed the rise of influential leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and President John F. Kennedy, whose assassinations would shock the nation. Against this backdrop of turmoil and transformation, even suburban communities like White Plains felt the reverberations of these historic events. Debates on racial equality, war, and social justice echoed across the country. Right off the bat in the 60s, a fire on Main Street underscored the pressing need for downtown revitalization efforts. And over the next 2 decades, extensive redevelopment projects altered large parts of the city, with older buildings demolished to make way for modern structures and streets widened to accommodate increasing traffic. Amidst this urban transformation, the White Plains Beautification Foundation emerged in 1965, aiming to counterbalance the concrete developments by planting trees and installing green spaces along the city's key avenues. However, beneath these surface changes lay deeper social issues, prompting activism from residents and culminating in student boycotts at the White Plains High School in 1968. The city's physical landscape continued to evolve with projects like the White Plains Mall and the County Courthouse complex. With the library operating as usual, staff responding to tens of thousands of reference questions, and maintaining healthy circulation numbers. And on top of all of that, plans for a new library were becoming a reality. The property on Martine was purchased, architects' plans were approved, and preparations for a groundbreaking gala were in progress. The 1970s in America were characterized by both progress and challenges. The nation grappled with the aftermath of the war in Vietnam, the Watergate scandal, and an energy crisis that led to long lines at gas stations. Disco was big, and the civil rights movement continued, and White Plains underwent profound transformations, epitomized by the redevelopment projects that reshaped its urban landscape. Plans set in motion during the early 1960s finally came to fruition, altering the city's identity and physical layout significantly. In addition, the 70s saw a surge in corporate presence, with companies like Nationwide Insurance, IBM, Sage Instruments, Burns International Security Services, and AT&T establishing home offices in White Plains. The current library building, that we all know and love, was opened in 1974. As the 1980s approached, residents and businesses alike looked forward to embracing new challenges, advancements, and experiences, confident in the city's enduring spirit of innovation and resilience. The 1980s in America were marked by a unique blend of economic prosperity, cultural dynamism, and political transformation. Ronald Reagan's presidency set the tone for much of the decade, characterized by deregulation, tax cuts, and a fervent anti-communist stance. This era witnessed the rise of iconic pop culture phenomena like MTV, the personal computer, and blockbuster films. White Plains experienced its own economic and social shifts, reflecting the broader trends of the era, while retaining its unique identity amidst a whirlwind of change. The completion of the Galleria Mall in 1980 heralded a new era of shopping, which drew crowds from across Westchester County to its modern retail spaces.
We bring more good things to Christmas at the Galleria. A magnificent 5-story castle that comes alive with storybook characters. An exquisite setting of gardens, sparkling pools, and cascading waterfalls. Abraham and Strauss and over 130 fine shops, including 22 restaurants and eateries. And of course, Santa's here with a gift for every child.
During this time, the library would celebrate 9 decades of service. And as the city looked towards the future, it held steadfast to its identity as a dynamic hub of activity, innovation, and progress, ready to carve out its place in the final chapter of the 20th century. The 90s was a decade marked by significant cultural and technological shifts. It saw the rise of the internet and globalization, leading to rapid advancements in communication and commerce. The era was characterized by economic prosperity, with the dot-com boom fueling unprecedented growth in the stock market. Politically, the country experienced moments of both optimism and turmoil, from the end of the Cold War to the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. White Plains faced a period of economic stagnation due to corporate downsizing and restructuring, leading to the closure of major offices like Nestle's. While new development projects were put on hold, organizations such as the White Plains Historical Society and the Slater Center continued to be vital in preserving local history and fostering community vitality. In 1999, the library celebrated 100 years. In addition, the White Plains Library Foundation was launched, with a campaign aimed at securing the library's collections, programs, and services for the future. I'd say they did a good job. Throughout the 20th century, White Plains experienced a transformative journey, evolving from a modest suburban town into a vibrant economic and cultural hub. With the advent of modern transportation, technological advancements, and shifts in demographics, it emerged as a thriving commercial center, attracting businesses, residents, and visitors alike. Its strategic location, coupled with a commitment to urban development and community engagement, propelled White Plains into prominence. It's a dynamic urban center, blending the charm of its colonial past with the vibrancy of modern living. As the city continues to evolve, it remains anchored in its heritage, a beacon of progress and possibility in the heart of Westchester County. Thanks for coming today, and have a good one.